The time has finally come. For all you horsepower-addicted motorheads who've been frothing at the mouth, pacing back and forth, biting your already chewed-off nails, the wait is over. It's time for the most anticipated ATV shootout story ever. It's time to find out which 1000cc Sport 4x4 ATV is the top dog. And while it's been a long time coming, we think it'll be worth the wait. If you're not an adrenaline-addicted horsepower junkie who loves to be sideways at 70 miles per hour, you may be wondering what all the fuss is about. To you, I have just two things to say. First, put your big boy pants on and take a Renegade 1000X XC or a Scrambler 1K for a ride. That's all it takes to fully understand what overpowered muscle bikes are all about. And second, if you have to ask why, you're probably not the target audience for this shootout. Still, you might learn a thing or two, and if nothing else, you'll get to see ATVs slaying sweet power slides in slow motion. And honestly, who doesn't love slow motion? The Renegade 1000X XC is the pinnacle of ATV coolness. Not only does it have a massive 1-liter V-twin engine and aggressively sculpted, almost mean-looking plastic, but it also comes with a long list of legit race-ready parts that can handle whatever type of beating you can dish out. Its Fox Podium X RC 2.0 shocks are probably the most impressive of this list. Boku adjustability, race-proven durability, and ego-stroking cool factor are just a few of their most impressive attributes. But most importantly, they work. It doesn't seem to matter what type of rider you are, the RC 2.0s can be set up to provide whatever kind of ride characteristics you're looking for. My only complaint here is how you adjust the compression and rebound on these puppies. I realize a small flat blade screwdriver isn't hard to come by, but everyone around here prefers actual clicker knobs, so adjustments can be made anytime, any place, without tools. During my test ride of the XXC, I stated that its hole-shot ATR and cast aluminum beadlock wheel and tire package is perfect, and that fact remains true today. Traction on any surface other than mud is almost unbelievable, and durability is nothing short of impressive. Ergonomically, the Renegade is fantastic, save for one issue I'll get to in a minute. Bar placement is perfect, and bar width and bend is great for both easy and aggressive riding. The seat is comfortable, and it's padded far enough back that you won't smash your nether bits on this rear rack, or whatever this little thing back here is called. Big bonus points go to the raised and serrated foot pegs. You're not going to know how much you like them until you've actually tried them. But there is one glaring inequity with the ergos on the Renegade, something that only becomes apparent when you first sit on the Scrambler. The space between your feet when planted on the pegs is nearly double that of the Polaris. If you ride horses, you probably won't even notice. But if you ride motocross bikes, performance motorcycles, or even sport ATVs, you're gonna really appreciate the Polaris and probably cringe when it comes time to straddle the Renegade. The Renegade's 1000cc V-twin produces King Kong torque that's always on tap, whenever and wherever you choose to unleash it. The front wheels are rarely on the ground at anything under 40 miles an hour, and steering is better accomplished with your right thumb than it is the handlebars. Sure, it's down on horsepower a bit, and yes, it's not as smooth at slower speeds, but when it counts, you'll never feel like you don't have enough. Can-Am's Tri-Mode dynamic power steering is hands down the best in the industry. When it was first released, I thought Tri-Mode was just a gimmick, and yet I find I'm using all three of the modes at some point or another nearly every time I ride. Race-ready bumpers, handguards, and skid plates are all nice upgrades that come standard on the XXC and are things that, even for an average rider, add value to the entire vehicle package. If you wanted to spend less, you can always buy the base model, but that's not what this shootout is about. Polaris's Scrambler 1000 is only in its first year of production, but from the moment it was released, it garnered maximum praise from everyone who rode it, for very good reason. This is an extremely refined vehicle in terms of performance. It has more horsepower than any production ATV ever built, but puts that power to the ground with almost underwhelming precision. Its parallel twin-cylinder mill produces 89 horsepower and barks with authority from its tuned dual exhaust, but it lacks the almost angry low-end grunt we've developed a love-hate relationship with on the Renegade. And this is a bit of a conundrum. We like the Renegade's mean bottom end, but it can also be tiring and sometimes annoying when you want to ride more like a real human being than a superhero. The Scrambler, on the other hand, is almost telepathic in its power delivery and builds to a mind-blowing mid-range, but lacks that wheelie-popping bottom end. With that said, the Scrambler is no slouch. It makes the meat of its power right in the middle of the power band, which is where you'll be riding it most of the time. It still lifts its front wheels on command, but you can also poke around slowly in the rocks, which makes this engine and clutch package very versatile. The Scrambler is suspended by a set of Fox Podium X 2.0s that offer all the adjustability you really need and do a great job of adapting to almost any riding condition. They lack some of the higher end features of the RC 2.0s, but do include a knob on the compression clicker, so making adjustments is quick and easy. For 90% of the riding the average person is going to do, this suspension setup is excellent. It's smooth on the small stuff, but still soaks up big hits without bottoming. The only time you'll find its limitations is when you push this vehicle to its max in the roughest possible conditions. This is where the Scrambler's more civilized persona becomes most apparent. The Scrambler is not and has never been advertised as a race-ready bike. Unlike the Renegade X XC, it's meant for the trail. Is this bad? Not at all. The trail is where 99% of Scramblers and Renegades will spend the majority of their lives. Before I'd actually spent any time on the Renegade this season, I was sold wholesale on the 14-inch wheel and tire package found on the Scrambler. It gets great traction in almost any condition and it looks super cool. But after spending time with ITP whole shot ATRs on the Renegade, I can see a number of benefits they provide that would vastly improve the Scrambler as a whole. The Scrambler's taller tires do help with ground clearance, but for a vehicle at this level of performance, I think I'd prefer a more performance-minded tire and a set of beadlocks versus a cool-looking set of 14-inch wheels. Ergonomics is one area the Scrambler stands out in a big way. Now, I'm a big guy, and I transition a lot from sitting to standing when I ride. The seating position on the Scrambler is excellent, reach to the bars is spot on, and standing ergonomics are particularly good. But the bars themselves, with the bar-mounted headlight and gauge pod, are not the optimal shape for super aggressive riding. On a vehicle like this, I'd prefer to have the gauges mounted on the tank or in front of a set of low-rise bars with less aggressive sweep. The bar height could be compensated for with a riser, maybe even an adjustable one. The foot placement on the Scrambler is ridiculously good. A horizontally mounted engine provides a huge reduction in space between the foot pegs. It feels more like you're riding a sport ATV or dirt bike than a beastly 4x4. It also allows you to tuck into the center of the bike more when you're really powering hard through a corner, and finally, your standing position is far more natural. Polaris has developed a power steering system that works really well at both high and low speeds. It's predictable and for the most part invisible while you're riding, but having the ability to choose between 3 levels of assist on the Renegade has left me feeling a bit confined to just one setting on the Scrambler. If I had to pick just one thing to gripe about with the Scrambler, it would have nothing to do with the ATV itself, but rather a lack of included bonus features versus its only competition. There really aren't any fancy bolt-ons included with the Scrambler. You get cool shocks, nice wheels, and handguards. That's it. If you want anything else, you gotta add it yourself. And like I said, this segment is not about sacrificing the goods to save a few bucks. It's about excess at all costs. So with that in mind, we strongly feel Polaris needs to release an upgraded model of the Scrambler that includes all the race-ready goodies it's currently lacking. So there you have it, a full breakdown of the industry's only 1000cc sport 4x4 ATVs. Now that you know what they're made of, let's find out how they compare to one another and how that affects their standings. The Scrambler is definitely the more civilized of the two in nearly every area. Despite its nearly 9% horsepower advantage, it still manages to generate a power band that's smooth as butter. Its suspension is more plush and it's ergonomically more laid back, but it also lacks a lot of the fancy goodies a person buying this bike is going to want. The Renegade is a far more snotty beast. It's abrupt down low, and despite a horsepower disadvantage, it doesn't feel down on power at all. Its ride is far more firm and its ergonomic package far more aggressive. In light of this, its list of race-ready inclusions seems to make a lot of sense. As a buyer, it's important to know yourself and be honest. And if you know that you're more of an average user who wants the big ponies of a 1K ATV but isn't likely to push it all the way to its limits, the Scrambler is probably the better choice. Day to day, it's going to provide the most civilized riding experience and be slightly more versatile in the real world. On the other hand, if you know that you push your toys to their limits and understand the trade-off in civility required for maximum performance, the Renegade is probably the better choice for you. But that doesn't really answer the question, which is best? At this point, I'd usually dig into the value aspect of the comparison, but value doesn't rank very high on the list of considerations for a buyer in this class. Which is why we feel the Renegade 1000X XC offers more of what the buyer of a vehicle like this expects. If Polaris were to offer a more maxed out Scrambler package, we may have to rethink our decision, but as they currently stand, they don't come more maxed out than the XXC, and that's what riding a 1K Sport 4x4 is all about. If you enjoyed this video, post a comment and let us know what you think. Then, click this link to subscribe and that link for more great videos from DirtTrax TV.